James Melville. James, I want to divert you to the state broadcaster, the BBC. Had a programme called, Panorama a couple of nights ago, featuring interviews. It was about Chris Kaba, the gangster who got shot dead by an armed copper a couple of years back. And, of course, only 2 weeks ago, Sergeant Martin Blake, the armed copper, was acquitted of murder, free, found completely cleared. And so this Panorama last night reopened, if you like, the kind of gaping wound about this debate. We shouldn't have shot him, he should have arrested him and all this. They made a big thing of interviewing Kaba's parents, Prosper and Helen. And they got a former director of the Independent Office of Police Complaints, a guy called Sal Neeson, who kept stating that there was no gun found and Chris Kaba was not armed and therefore implying he should not have been shot. But you ask any copper, he was armed, and his weapon was a 2-ton car, a 2-ton Audi, which he drove directly at police. That became his weapon. That was clearly a righteous killing. So why is the BBC... The BBC is catching a lot of flack for this, quite rightly in my view. 2 weeks after that case, 2 weeks after the acquittal of Sergeant Martin Blake, the BBC rakes over all the old coals and basically says this was a wrong killing and we need to look at this. I mean, what does the BBC think? What does it think it's playing at there?
It's just opened up a huge debate again, unnecessarily so, I would say. And I think, for instance, the police generally get a lot of flack from all different directions. Again, whatever side of the story. Sometimes they can't win. And I think the police generally have been through a difficult situation over the last 15 years with savage cuts. I mean, going back to austerity, 20,000 police left the force, huge cuts. And I know some of those figures have come back a little bit. But ultimately, again, it comes back to a couple of things. First, there's been a question asked about the BBC about why go there again on what is a very, very sensitive...
So quickly, James, so quickly. 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's the timing of it. It opens up a lot of debates again that have already been had. There's sensitivities on actually both sides of this. So I question the timing of that. But I think, like many other topics, to touch on what I said earlier, there needs to be a debate about what is the role in terms of the function and form and powers of the police. Because there seems to be no consistency with what governments or individuals within the media are saying about what the police can and cannot do. Yeah. And I feel sometimes a bit sorry for the police because their right to reply on this is quite difficult. It's almost like they cannot do any right in any given situation because you're going to have one side of the debate, you're going to criticise them for it. It's an incredibly difficult job. And sometimes they're working literally by minute, reacting to situations, and they don't always get it right. No one would. No. But what they do need, I think, is they need more resources. There needs to be more police on the streets. That's largely what the public want. And again, it comes back to that point. We're going to fund our public services. Make sure the money is spent in the right way so everyone's reaping the benefit of the public service, including the actual institutions themselves, and that includes the police. Yeah.
Now, Chris Kaba was just a lifelong gangster. First went to jail, I think, when he was about 13. Stabbed and shot people as a hobby almost. We're just watching film of him shooting someone in a nightclub. There's more film of him chasing someone down the street, firing a gun at them. There's evidence that he shot one poor guy in both knees. I mean, he was a lowlife. And if anyone was going to die in the way he did, it was always going to be him. That was the way his life was heading. Now, the thing is, since Sergeant Martin Blake was acquitted 2 weeks ago, Chris Kaba's gang, the 67 gang, a notorious South London crime gang, put a price on Martin Blake's head, 10,000 quid if you can kill him. And that is why the BBC is being so severely criticised about this.
Yeah.
You know, Barney Blake and his family are in hiding at the moment, and you've just put this programme on that will only heighten emotion and put Sergeant Blake and his family in more danger. I just think, I mean, you know, it's free press, free media and all that, but I think this is irresponsible. It's too quick to do this. And of course it's the BBC, and it's all like, oh, well, you know, evil police shot an innocent man. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. This guy, Chris Kaba, when they pulled him up, he wouldn't get out of the car, wouldn't wind down his window. Turned out he had a balaclava in the glove compartment. Must have been a very cold day. Also, he had evidence of gunshot on him to his car. The car he was in was suspected of being involved in 2 shootings earlier this day. Utterly righteous shooting, no doubt about it whatsoever. But the BBC is acting like it was some sort of police horror. You know, it's too early, and it's kind of... There's a wrong premise, I think, for this documentary.
Yeah, they're supposed to be public service broadcaster. You know, it's supposed to be impartial, but the very nature of showing this programme at this time means it's not impartial. It's the timing of it, as we go back to. It's the sensitivities. And actually, on this story, there's a lot of nuances to the story. There's too many examples involving the police, but many other stories where people just pick a side, straight away pick a side, without actually taking a step back and say, there's one side, there's the other side, and somewhere in the middle lies the truth. But what the BBC have done is even more than that. It's slanted it. It's framed it in the zone. And that, you know, I think the BBC have got a lot of form and a lot of stories where it's just nudged in a particular direction.
Yeah, the direction you're talking about is leftwards.
Well, yes, exactly. And it's or it's in sort of the direction a lot of time of the establishment or the government of the day as well, because quite often the BBC are worried about losing their charter, so quite often they nudge towards that.
I think they're less worried now it's Labour. I mean, they're safe as houses now. They got Keir and the gang in, but you're good point. But
it is, and I think, you know, the BBC have a public responsibility to so many different issues. And I think again, the BBC's a bit like the police, they get criticised from all sides, but often with good reason.
Yeah.
You know, the BBC, in terms of forming a lot of the stories that they've developed, and also some of the governance as well, and various issues that have come up in terms of the scandals, haven't been on top of things. And yet they also, through BBC Verify, claim to be the arbiters of truth. Which is
I wouldn't trust BBC Verify as far as I could throw it. If you want to get the lie, check with Verify. There, yeah, nice poem for you. Verify, they lie. It's as simple as that.
You'd be an advertising copywriter, Kevin.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean,
Tell you, you go on.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they, you know, slanted, you know, what is the truth on a number of different issues. They kind of have the moral kind of arbiter of what is the truth and, you know, holier than thou BBC. But actually, a lot of the times they get it wrong.
Yeah.
And they should say that they get it wrong. And we have the right under freedom of speech as well, and our own information, to prove when they get it wrong as well, rather than them sort of acting like God on what is the truth.
They go, you know, only the BBC would set up something like Verify and say, we will check the facts and we will get the absolute truth. No. We've seen your coverage of Gaza. We've seen your anti-Semitic news stories, and we don't believe Verify. We don't trust Verify, and we don't trust the BBC. It is as simple as that. Sad state of affairs, but there you are. James, I've got to go. Great to talk to you. Let's talk again soon. James Melville there, social and political commentator.